Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're unpacking something that honestly feels a little less like a business book and more like a survival manual for the modern economy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we're looking at Chapter 1 of Support Experience by Krishna Raj Raja. And if you work in tech or, any business that relies on keeping your customers around, this is the kind of stuff that probably keeps you up at night, or at least it should.
It really should. I mean, we have this tendency to look at the giants of industry, the Googles, the Adobes, the Salesforces, and we just assume they were always destined to win.
Right, like they had a crystal ball.
Exactly. But this source material really challenges that view. It argues that we are actually living through a mass extinction event right now for companies that just refuse to adapt to some very specific new rules.
Okay, so to understand these rules, we actually need to travel back in time a little bit. Let's set the scene. It's 2007. We're in San Francisco at the Web 2.0 Summit. The Palace Hotel is just buzzing.
And context is super key here, because 2007 is a massive year in tech history. Steve Jobs has literally just pulled the very first iPhone out of his pocket.
Such a crazy moment to think back on.
It was. And Facebook had just crossed 50 million users. So everyone is completely obsessed with social media and mobile. The whole energy of the room is all about this new consumer.
Right. And in the middle of all this hype about apps and poking people on Facebook, there's an interview with Bruce Chizen. He was the CEO of Adobe at the time. Now, for the younger folks listening, Adobe back then was the absolute king of the cardboard box.
Oh, yeah. High margins, total dominance.
You literally went to a physical store, you paid thousands of dollars, got a heavy box with a disk in it, and you installed Photoshop.
Which was an incredible business model for them. Once you sold that box, boom, the money was in the bank. Done.
Exactly. So Chizen sits down for this interview, and he makes this prediction that honestly sounds absolutely bananas at the time. He says that eventually Adobe's massive, heavy creative software is going to move entirely to the cloud, a hosted subscription model.
We really have to pause and appreciate how technically absurd that sounded in 2007.
Oh, totally. Bandwidth speeds were terrible.
Your browser would crash if you opened too many tabs. The idea of running a beast like Photoshop in a browser was like, trying to stream a 4K movie over a dial-up connection.
Yeah, impossible.
But he said, and I quote, 5 years is probably the minimum. He was reading the writing on the wall before the wall was even completely built.
And that's where it gets really interesting, because he was right. Fast forward to May 2013, and Adobe does the unthinkable.
They killed the golden goose.
They did. They killed the Creative Suite, that cash cow that they sold, for up to $2,500, and they launched Creative Cloud for $49.99 a month.
I want to dig into the financial mechanics of that for just a second, because it's so easy to gloss over how terrifying that actually is for a CEO. In finance, this is sometimes called swallowing the fish.
Swallowing the fish. I love that. What does that mean?
So picture a graph of a company's revenue over time. When you switch from selling a $2,500 box to a $50 subscription, your immediate revenue just falls off a cliff.
Right, because nobody is handing you big checks anymore.
Exactly. It dips way down, creating the belly of the fish. You are bleeding money. You are betting your entire career that eventually all those $50 monthly subscriptions are going to stack up and the line will shoot up past where it ever was before.
So you create the tail of the fish.
You got it. But for a few years there, you look like a massive failure to Wall Street.
You're trading guaranteed upfront cash for this small monthly trickle. But talk about a payoff. The source mentions that Adobe's market cap grew from $22 billion to over $235 billion in a decade.
Unbelievable growth. They didn't just survive the transition, they essentially became the textbook definition of how to do it right.
And that actually brings us to the core thesis of this entire deep dive. It's all about adaptation. The book uses this quote. Well, the source notes it's actually a famous misquote attributed to Charles Darwin, but the sentiment totally holds true. It says, "It is not the strongest of the species that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change."
But here's the kicker, and this is why this chapter is so important for you listening right now. Even a giant like Adobe, who pulled off this flawless, massive pivot, isn't safe today.
No one is safe.
Right. The source material outlines 5 forces that are disrupting business right now, heading into 2025 and beyond. It's kind of like you survive one giant wave, but there are 5 more right behind it.
And these aren't just isolated random trends, right? They seem really deeply connected.
Precisely. They feed off each other. We're talking about the consumerization of tech, product-led growth, AI, usage-based pricing, and finally, the support experience itself.
Okay, let's unpack these forces one by one. I feel like they explain so much of what we're seeing in the market. So, force number one, the consumerization of tech, or COT. Now, this sounds a bit like a Silicon Valley buzzword. What does it actually look like in the wild?
It's essentially the blurring of the line between business software and stuff regular people use. It used to be that if you wanted enterprise-grade capabilities, you needed an IT department, a massive procurement process, and a signed multi-year contract.
Like the old days of buying physical server racks.
Exactly. But then came Amazon Web Services, AWS. Suddenly, any random developer with a credit card could buy enterprise-grade cloud storage without asking anyone's permission. That was the first crack in the dam.
Just bypassing the whole system.
Yeah. But the best example the source gives, and I really love this story, is Canva.
Oh, Canva is an absolute beast. My kids use it for school projects. I use it for quick slide decks. But it started with Melanie Perkins, right?
Yes. And she wasn't some huge tech titan. She was actually tutoring university students in how to use Photoshop. And she noticed something simple but incredibly profound. Photoshop was miserable for 99% of people.
It's got way too many buttons.
Right. It was just too hard. It's incredibly powerful, sure, but for the average person who just wants to make a yearbook or a quick flyer, it was massive overkill and just overcomplicated.
Yeah, it's like using a jet engine to try and dry your hair.
That is a perfect analogy. So she builds Canva with the idea that anyone should be able to design. And this is where the numbers from the source just blew my mind. When Adobe switched to the cloud, they estimated their total addressable market, everyone who might ever buy their stuff, was about 8 million users.
8 million. They thought that was the absolute ceiling.
Yep. And Canva currently has over 100 million monthly active users.
That is just staggering. So Adobe thought the whole pie was only 8 million people big, and Canva proved the pie was actually massive.
They didn't just steal a slice of the pie. They baked a new pie that was 12 and a half times bigger. They completely democratized design. But the force here isn't just about market size. It's about expectations. This is what the book calls the Nordstrom effect.
The Nordstrom effect.
Yeah, because B2B buyers are just normal human beings, right? They go home, they shop on Amazon or Zappos, they get one-click returns, beautiful interfaces, instant gratification.
Everything just works.
Right. And then they go to work, they log into their super expensive enterprise CRM software, and it looks like a spreadsheet from 1995.
And they want to throw their computer out the window.
Exactly. The tolerance for bad design is at 0. If your business software doesn't feel as easy to use as ordering an Uber, you are incredibly vulnerable. You can't just hide behind, oh, it's complicated enterprise stuff anymore.
Which leads so perfectly into force number 2, product-led growth, or PLG. Because this feels like the natural evolution of that consumerization.
It is. If consumerization is about who is using it, regular people, PLG is about how they acquire it. And the main challenger to Adobe here is Figma.
Figma is such a fascinating case study because they didn't beat Adobe with, like, better billboard marketing or super slick sales rep. They beat them with the actual architecture of the product itself.
Think about the barriers to entry. The old Adobe model. You download heavy software, you have to input a credit card, maybe you get a short trial, and you're working totally in isolation on your desktop. Figma comes along, and it's right there in the browser.
No installation required.
None. It works on any computer.
Yeah.
And there's a freemium tier that is free forever.
And the multiplayer aspect of it, that's the real viral loop, right?
That's the key mechanism. You're designing a mockup in Figma, and you just send a URL to a developer or a marketing manager. They click the link, and boom, they are instantly in the product, seeing your mouse cursor moving around in real time.
They don't have to install anything or create an account to just look at it.
Exactly. And suddenly, they are users too. It spreads completely like a virus inside an organization.
The source mentions that Figma acquired 4 million users in 6 years. 4 million. And Adobe got so spooked, they tried to buy them out for $20 billion.
Which is wild.
Yeah, I know that deal didn't end up going through because of regulators, but the valuation alone tells you exactly how terrified the incumbent was.
It absolutely proves the threat. But there is a deeper statistic here regarding product-led growth that is vital. 80% of businesses now want a self-service buying process.
80%. So the old days of taking a client out to a fancy steak dinner to close a software deal are basically over.
For software, absolutely. People do not want to talk to your sales reps. They don't want a mandatory discovery call. They don't want a demo booked for next Tuesday between 2 and 3 p.m.
You just want to play with the tool.
They want to get their hands on the product right now. They want to try before they buy. If you're hiding your core product behind a contact sales button, you're basically fighting human nature at this point.
Okay, so we have easier tech, and we have products that basically sell themselves. But then comes the big one. Force number 3, artificial intelligence.
The great disruptor.
The story in the source about the Colorado State Fair art competition really drives this home for me. Jason Allen wins the digital arts category with a piece called Theater d'Opera Spatial.
Beautiful piece.
It's gorgeous. It has this Baroque, surreal lighting. And he made the whole thing with Midjourney, just typing in prompts.
And it raises this huge existential question for a company like Adobe, or really anyone selling specialized tools. If I can just type a text prompt and get a stunning award-winning image out of it, what happens to the years of skill required to master Photoshop? What happens to the tool itself?
Yeah, why do I need the complex interface if I can just ask for the result? But AI is such a broad term. I liked how the source breaks it down into 3 specific buckets. Deloitte classifies them as product, process, and insights.
Right. Let's clarify those for everyone. Product is what we see in all the headlines. Autonomous vehicles, ChatGPT, Adobe Firefly. It's the flashy stuff you directly sell to customers. Then you have process, which is internal. That's automating the boring stuff to make your own workers faster and more efficient.
And the third one, insights.
That's the sleeper hit, honestly. That's using AI to find patterns that humans just naturally miss.
Like what?
Like running sentiment analysis across thousands of customer support tickets to predict who is going to cancel their subscription before they even know they want to cancel.
Oh, that's powerful. And there's a really interesting point about business mindset here, too. The difference between how laggards and high performers view this technology.
This is critical. The laggards look at AI and think, great, efficiency, how can I use this to fire people and cut my costs? They view AI purely as a savings mechanism.
Which is the fear narrative we hear on the news constantly.
Correct. But the high performers look at AI and ask, how can I use this to create entirely new revenue streams? How can I do things for my customers that I physically couldn't do before? It's an expansion mindset versus a contraction mindset.
That is such an important distinction. It's not about doing the exact same thing, but cheaper. It's about doing something entirely new. But of course, there are major risks. We can't just ignore the hallucinations or the massive copyright issues.
Trust is becoming a major currency here. Because if your AI lies to your customer, or if it generates copyrighted material that gets them sued, your reputation is done. So while AI definitely lowers the barrier to creation, it massively raises the stakes on trust and brand reliability.
Right. Okay, moving on to force number 4. This one hits the wallet directly. Usage-based pricing, or UBP.
This is a huge shift. It's moving from paying for access to paying for consumption. Think of it exactly like your electric bill. You don't pay a flat monthly fee just to be connected to the power grid. You pay for the actual kilowatts you burn.
The example given in the text is Opus Pro. It's this cool video tool that takes long podcasts and clips them into shorts for TikTok.
Right. And here is why UBP is taking over. AI is incredibly expensive to run. Running a traditional database, cheap. But running a large language model involves massive computing power. Every single time you ask ChatGPT a question, it costs real money in server processing time.
So companies literally can't afford to offer unlimited AI usage for $10 a month.
They'd go bankrupt in a week. So Opus Pro sells minutes. You buy 200 minutes of processing time. Even Adobe is doing this now with what they call generative credits. You want to use the magic AI recolor button. That costs you a credit.
But here is where it gets really dangerous for SaaS businesses. In the old subscription model, companies could hide behind something called shelfware. Can you explain what that is for the listener?
Shelfware is the dirty little secret of the software world. It's software that just sits on a digital shelf collecting dust. A company signs a yearly contract for $100,000. They try the tool, maybe they stop using it in month 3, but the vendor keeps getting paid until month 12.
Because they're locked in.
Exactly. In fact, the vendor loves shelfware because they did all the money, but they don't have to pay any of the server costs to actually support the usage.
It's basically free money for them.
Exactly. But with usage-based pricing, that safety net entirely vanishes. If a customer stops using your product today, your revenue drops today. There is no lag.
Ouch. So there's just nowhere to hide anymore.
Nowhere. Immediate revenue impact. This fundamentally changes the relationship you have with your user. You have to constantly prove your value every single day, or the customer just stops tapping the button and the money stops flowing instantly.
Which leads us so perfectly to the final force.
Okay.
Force number 5, support experience, or SX.
This is the culmination of everything we've talked about. Think about the game board we've just set up. AI makes all software features comparable because everyone has access to the exact same back-end LLMs. PLG makes switching incredibly easy. You can try a competitor in 5 minutes without talking to sales. And UBP means you can stop paying instantly. So what is the only competitive advantage you have left?
It's how you actually treat the customer. It's the experience.
It's the final moat. The source argues that when features and price are essentially equal across the board, the experience is what wins.
There are some pretty brutal stats in the chapter here. 51% of B2B customers will leave after just one negative support experience. One.
And conversely, 67% are willing to actually pay more for good support. It's not just a safety net anymore. It's a premium feature people will pay for.
I love the quote from Figma's VP of Product, Sho Kuwamoto. He said, "Customer support is everyone's job. Even the high-level designers and developers at Figma were answering support tickets directly."
And notice the huge mindset shift there. In most traditional companies, support is seen as a cost center. It's that basement department you try to underfund and outsource. But at Figma, they weren't just fixing bugs or resetting passwords.
They were actively helping users design better.
Yes. They were acting as consultants, really enabling the user's success within the tool.
So support literally becomes a revenue center.
That's the big headline. In this new world where your revenue stops the exact moment, usage stops support is the engine that drives adoption. It's the primary thing that keeps the customer logging in day after day.
So let's zoom out a bit. What does this all mean when we put these pieces together? The source describes this as a flywheel effect.
Right. It's not 5 separate, isolated things. It's a cycle. Consumerization creates users who demand easy, self-service products. That demand drives product-led growth. To sustain PLG and the heavy computing costs of AI, you have to move to usage-based pricing. And because you're on usage-based pricing, you need an incredible support experience just to keep them consuming.
It's all completely interlinked.
And if you break just one link, the whole thing falls apart. You can't have usage-based pricing with terrible customer support. You'll literally churn to 0 in a month.
I want to circle back to something we touched on at the very beginning of this deep dive, that Steve Jobs mindset. The source mentions a really powerful quote. "Our task is to read things that are not yet on the page."
That is the pure essence of adaptation. Most companies just rely on backward-looking market research. They ask customers, hey, what do you want? But customers often only know what exists right now.
They can't tell you they want an iPhone before the iPhone exists.
Exactly. They can't tell you they want Canva before Canva exists.
So true adaptation isn't just reacting to a fire once it starts. It's anticipating.
It's anticipating needs before the customer even knows how to articulate them. It's spotting those yellow state signals, those really subtle shifts in user behavior before they turn into a full-blown red state emergency.
Which brings us to the final, somewhat haunting thought the source leaves us with, the idea of the invisible villain.
This is what every business leader listening really needs to hear. We used to worry about the angry email, the customer storming out of the conference room, the dramatic loud firing.
Right, the loud exit. You knew when you lost them.
But in a usage-based, product-led world, that's not how you lose customers anymore. You lose them to abandonment.
What does that actually look like on the ground?
It looks like silence. They don't write you a letter. They don't call their account manager to cancel. They just slowly stop logging in. Their daily usage ticks down 10% this week. Then they find a different AI tool for one small task than another.
It's just a silent death.
It is. And by the time you finally notice the revenue drop on your quarterly financial report, it is way too late. They're already gone. They've built entirely new habits somewhere else.
So the role of the modern support experience isn't just sitting there answering the phone when it rings. It's actively listening for the silence.
Beautifully put. It's using data, AI, and human intuition to spot that abandonment before it happens. To reach out and say, hey, I see you haven't used the video clipper tool in a week. Are you stuck? Can I help you with your workflow?
Being proactive, not reactive.
That is the only way to survive in 2025. You have to re-earn the customer's trust every single day. The lease is always up for renewal.
Wow. From Adobe's massive risky bet back in the day to the silent threat of abandonment today, This really reframes how we should look at all customer relationships. It's not just about selling a product anymore, it's about earning the right to keep that customer every single day.
It's a tougher world, for sure, but a much more honest one. You can't hide behind contracts anymore. You just have to be genuinely good.
Well, that is a whole lot to chew on for you listeners out there. Adaptation isn't optional, it's the whole game. Thank you so much for walking us through these 5 forces today.
Always a pleasure.
And to you listening, keep your ear to the ground. Listen for the silence in your own business. And try to read the things that aren't on the page yet. We'll catch you in the next deep dive.